decided our session on the article that we wanted her to present on, which was on collective punishment in the context of pro-Palestinian protests in the US context. So we'll be reading this article, and then hopefully we can make some time for conversation and some action. We have some actions that have stayed the same since last week, so it would be great if we can brainstorm together and talk about actions happening in our different communities. So with that said, I'll share my screen. So I'll just read through this article. It's a pretty long article, but I think it's quite insightful about what's going on in the US in terms of anti-Palestinian discrimination and then this collective punishment that's happening in corporate America, essentially. And I'm curious also to see if this is happening in the same way in the UK and other countries, but I'll share my screen right now. Okay, are you guys able to see this? Okay, awesome. So I'll start with this article. So Jennifer Chowdhury, who couldn't be with us today, she wrote this article on pro-Palestine Muslim Americans are facing collective punishment at work and school. Adil Abut Halha felt hopeless last November while watching thousands of Palestinians die from Israel's military offensive on Gaza. The child of Yemeni and Sri Lankan Muslim immigrants, he wanted to do something to help the Palestinian cause for resistance. A product and data science expert at the tech company Linktree, Abut Halha taught himself to code and launch Boycott, an app that helps people identify Israeli products to boycott by simply scanning merchandise barcodes. The app also provides options for more ethical consumption. By April, the app exploded in popularity, partly fueled by news coverage on Al Jazeera. Abu Talha estimates the app has diverted $50 million in purchases and reached 500,000 users. But with this success came the loss of his day job, and Abu Talha says the two are linked. The dangerous effects of supporting Palestine have reached dizzying heights across academic institutions, corporate America, healthcare, law, and politics. The genocide of Palestinians has also divided the American public and unleashed a new wave of anti-Muslim and anti-Palestinian sentiment in the US, which continues to fund and provide arms for Israel's military offensive on Gaza. According to a Council on American Islamic Relations report released in April, the number of anti-Muslim complaints filed with the organization in 2023 increased 56% from 2022, and nearly half of the complaints were reported in the final 3 months of 2023 when the genocide began. Employment discrimination experienced by people like Abu Talha ranked among the top complaints received by CAIR care. New levels of hostility. So this shortly after the Al Jazeera video about Boycott was published in April, a colleague at Linktree messaged Abu Talha to congratulate him on the success of his app, though Abu Talha hadn't told anyone at work about his side project because of the sensitivity of the topic. Soon after the exchange with his colleague, Abu Talha's manager began criticizing his work, something that had never previously happened during his 18 months at Linktree. I started getting weird complaints at work in terms of performance reviews, Abu Talha told Prism, detailing criticisms of his technical skills and lack of a product growth mindset. His manager also told him other employees complained about his work ethic and that his mistakes were causing issues for other people. Abu Talha checked in with his team members, and their feedback was markedly different from what his manager conveyed to him. A project manager he worked with closely told him he trusted his work and data. Some colleagues claimed minor issues were blown out of proportion, while others said they did not complain at all. Nonetheless, Abu Talha took it upon himself to provide status updates to his manager about how he was working to improve his job performance. On June 25th, Linktree's vice president of legal joined Abu Talha's meeting with his manager and fired him. I had a minute or so to look on Slack to see if anyone else was fired. I found out one other Muslim guy I was working with was also fired, Abu Talha alleged. Abu Talha is currently considering taking legal action against his former employer because he believes that he was fired as a result of his app and his support for Palestine. Prism reached out to Linktree for comment, and the company did not respond by publication time. In general, we have seen two types of anti-Palestinian retaliation and intimidation taking place throughout corporate America today, explained Salah Zalatimo, a founding member of We for P, a professional support community that formed as a response to the intense levels of workplace discrimination experienced by people advocating for Palestine. One example is where an employee's manager has made public statements sympathetic with Israel, either at work or on social media, while the employee has made public statements sympathetic with Palestine, Zalatimo said, followed by a noticeable change in attitude toward the employee and issues of performance arising for the first time. The other is where a third party has flagged employees' social media posts that are sympathetic with Palestine as offensive or anti-Semitic. Human Resources then opens a formal internal investigation. Examples of workplace discrimination for supporters of Palestine have littered the news in recent months. In April, Google fired 50 employees who protested the company's cloud computing deal with the Israeli government. In May, Hassan Jabir, a Palestinian-American nurse at New York University's Langone Health, was terminated the day after the hospital awarded her for providing outstanding care to patients suffering perinatal loss. Jabir was employed by NYU Langone for nearly a decade when, in her acceptance speech, she referenced the unimaginable losses experienced by the women in her country due to the current genocide in Gaza. In June, Prism published reporting detailing the extensive discrimination experienced by Arab and Muslim media workers due to their coverage of Gaza. While Muslims in the workplace experienced job loss and hostile work environments, students who protested across college campuses in the spring faced violent repercussions for demanding their academic institutions divest from Israel. According to the Appeals Survey of local and student newspapers, police arrested more than 3,200 students and supporters on college campuses nationwide. These same students also faced expulsion, evictions, brutal police crackdowns, criminal persecution, Zionist mob violence, and hospitalization. Harvard and the University of Chicago even withheld diplomas from graduating seniors who participated in encampments and other protests. 21-year-old Palestinian-American Bassan, who is using a pseudonym for security reasons, graduated this May and plans to go to law school. Throughout her time as an undergrad, Bassan participated in protests and called on her university to divest from Israel. However, after October 7, 2023, she faced new levels of hostility from the administration of the small Catholic university she attended in New York City. During Bassan's graduation ceremony, she held up a Palestinian flag with the word "divest from death" across it. She was immediately attacked. "I was cursed out by a member of the board of trustees," Bassan said. "I was followed by one security guard that came from the right side of the stage, and another security guard who approached me from the left side tried to snatch away my flag before shoving me toward the stage. This was all before I could even put my hands on the diploma." According to the graduate, academic institutions will use any instrument necessary to minimize student advocacy. And that's so ironic because earlier in the commencement ceremony, there were a lot of speeches that spoke about embracing differences in opinion, Bassan said. Pakistani-American organizer Farhan Sharif is disappointed by the silence of his college president when it comes to Palestine and other recent events facing Muslim students on campus. Sharif graduated from New York City's Baruch College in May, and this fall he will attend the public college once again, this time as a graduate student. According to Sharif, college leadership has made no effort to reach out to the Muslim student body, in stark contrast to the support the college offered to Jewish students after October 7th. Shortly after the genocide began, Sharif said a student made a swastika on the floor of a campus bathroom, leading college president David Wu to issue a statement condemning the act, a move Sharif agreed with. However, prior to the anti-Semitic act, Sharif said a group of female Baruch students, most of whom were Muslim, experienced online sexual harassment and Islamophobia because of their religion and their support of Palestine. According to Sharif, the women's asked the school's public safety administration for support and received none. The students even recently went public about their experience on social media. Wu said nothing regarding the incident. Whether it is Islamophobic, xenophobic, anti-Asian, you name it, you have to release a statement that day. No response has come from the Baruch College, not even a condemnation or an email or anything. I feel like this really reflects the biases of the system because if it's a certain group that faced it, they will immediately issue a statement. In a statement to Prism, Baruch College's Director of Public Relations, Suzanne Brodsky, said the university does not tolerate acts of hate and is dedicated to providing students with a safe environment that fosters respect, and inclusion. The college actively investigates all reported incidents of discrimination and takes appropriate disciplinary action as necessary. Due to the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act and other privacy considerations, we cannot disclose or publicly share details about incidents, updates, and resolutions involving students or personnel. Graduating Muslim Americans who openly called for an end to the genocide or otherwise advocated for a ceasefire now face hurdles entering the job market. In one now infamous example, billionaire hedge fund founder Bill Ackman asked Harvard University to release the names of protesting students so that he and other CEOs wouldn't hire them. In another example, the law firm Foley and Lardner revoked its job offer to recent law school graduate Janaan Shahad because of public statements she made in support of Palestine. According to CARE, Muslim, Palestinian, and Arab students and employees are at increased risk of doxing. One Zionist website published more than 17,000 posts listing employees of major corporations who posted in support of Palestine. Much of the information came from LinkedIn, which quickly issued a cease and desist letter to the site for violating company rules against using automated programs to scrap data from the site. Salma, who is using a pseudonym for fear of further retaliation, is a graduate of Loyola University Chicago Strict School of Medicine. The OBGYN just completed her residency and told Prism that as a Palestinian American, her political views were never secret. However, in the weeks following October 7th, Zionists were emboldened to go after people like her. Toward the end of last year, the doctor said people began to regularly contact her employer to tell hospital administration Salma did not support peace and also complained that she characterized Israel as an apartheid state. The same information is included on a profile of Salma featured on the site Canary Mission that doxes anti-Zionist students and professors. I had to show my administration that the things I talk about have never been harmful, racist, or anti-Semitic, Salma explained. As a physician, I believe it's my duty to preserve human life and save mankind. So when I see people being killed, especially my own people, it's hard to sit idly and not do anything. Muslim Americans come from families who are rooted in countries across the globe, but the desire to see Palestine liberated unites many of them. People like Abu Talha, Bassan, and Salma told Prism that they want to see Palestine free. In the meantime, they will continue to experience collective punishment for their stance. According to CARE, this latest wave of Islamophobia has led to a significant increase in the number of complaints the organization has received, numbers that even surpassed those received during the Trump administration's Muslim ban in 2017. But this time around, the Muslim American community is better prepared with tools, resources, and political representation, especially those who came of age in the wake of 9/11, said Iman Abd Hadi, a writer, activist, and assistant professor of comparative human development at the University of Chicago, whose work focuses on Muslim American communities. Abd Hadi explained that post 9/11, Muslim American communities mobilized and organized in new and unprecedented ways. People are reacting from a place of more institutional power than they had after 9/11. We have organizations like CARE that are much stronger than they were then. We have a lot more infrastructure and support. And this power building continues. This year, the Muslim Public Affairs Council launched the Bureau of Academic Freedom to support young Muslim Americans by providing comprehensive training, mentorship, and resources intended to help future leaders with the tool needed to enter public service and advocate for change. But Muslim Americans are also fighting back against the discrimination they have experienced in academia since October 7th. Palestine Legal has filed 8 federal civil rights complaints, resulting in federal investigations at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, Emory University, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and Columbia University for anti-Palestinian discrimination in violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. The stakes couldn't be higher, not just for Palestinians being killed by the tens of thousands in Gaza, and not just for the Palestine movement, but for all our justice movements, said Palestine Legal Director Dima Khalidi in a statement. Now is the time to step up and defend our collective rights to dissent and organize for justice, and to challenge the descent into fascism that this movement pretends. We for P is also in the process of obtaining nonprofit status to better address ongoing discrimination against pro-Palestine workers. The group recently helped more than 15 employees navigate injustice in the workplace. What we are doing here is similar to the Know Your Rights campaigns that many oppressed communities require, Zelatimo said. Many of these intimidation tactics are against companies' own policies and sometimes against state and federal laws. So my advice to all professionals who support humanity and social justice is to read your company handbook. Remember that HR is not your friend, and most importantly, do not be afraid to stand your ground. Nobody should be afraid to say stop killing children or ceasefire now. Zelantimo's sentiments ring true for many young Muslim Americans like Salma who want to work toward a future where their professional lives can be aligned with their values. When I was interviewing with hospitals, I made an active effort to mention my advocacy and work for Palestine because I wanted to gauge the culture, Salma explained. The reaction during the interview usually lets me know if I'll be safe in that institution. I've turned down very generous offers because I couldn't work at an institution that did not support my people's right to exist. Okay, I'll stop the share here. But we can take a moment to reflect a little bit on the article. I can send a link as well to this article in case you want to reference it. And we'll make sure to share this on our newsletter. But yeah, if you have any thoughts on this article, if you know anyone with experiences, like we can have an open discussion about this. And also, again, I mentioned if there's other similar things happening outside the US that you think, we can draw similarities to, this would be great.
I know there are similarities in Canada.
Yeah, I know students in Canada were I can't remember which, maybe University of Toronto, they had an encampment, and I know they had faced a lot of repression there as well.
In the Netherlands, it's not as well documented as in this article, but it is very similar. I am in contact with quite a few students who have experienced how they have been harassed both by university and at the request of university by police, where their work has been made impossible. So the phenomena, although less documented, is similar in society, especially in academic circles.
I heard something new. I want somebody to explain. This member, he's from Gaza, and he goes to a Baptist church here in Georgia. And I wanted the speaker to speak about, Christian Zionism and so forth. He said there are a lot of Baptists who are really Christian Zionists, but they don't call themselves Christian Zionists. What did he mean by that? Do you follow the question? He said, we call them Christian Zionists, but they don't call themselves that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do they call themselves, Fahad? Do they have a name?
They're Baptists. This is their belief. We, as we interpret theology, we call them Christian Zionists. But
Right.
So he said, when you say, if you want him to speak about Christian Zionism, it does not register in their brain. You need to use a different name that to get through their brain or something.
Yeah.
I think some Christians just innocently read the Bible and just see that Israel lived there. They haven't really got any true concept of the depth of the Bible, and they're just stuck at this point. Oh, it's Israel, and they just defend Israel, and they don't see themselves as Zionists. They're on the naive side. They're just not aware. But I don't know. That could be one explanation.
But I like what he's talking. That means the name is very important, how to connect with people. If it doesn't register in their brain, we need to use a different. So we need to think about it, not now, but I'm just thinking loud.
They take the Bible literally and they choose the verses they want to accept and they go with it.
Okay.
I was preaching at a church and I put in the prayers for Gaza. And apparently they had a meeting without telling me and they took that prayer out. They said, we don't want to be political, but guess what? I changed my sermon and made it on how Jesus was political. And later on, they told me I showed them a different point of view, but I don't think they'll invite me again.
Yeah. We are having a great week this week and next week. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we are hosting Reverend Alex Awad. And then on the 16th, 17th, we are hosting Munder Isaac. And so we need to start touching people, not in the choir, but they never heard him before. So we need to start talking to different people.
Rudy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to add, Reverend Fahed, one of the things that we need to be careful about is using shorthand like Christian Zionism. I think all of us probably in this room here, in this chat room, understand what we mean by that, that complex set of beliefs that many of our Christian brothers and sisters have held. But we probably just need to be more forceful and just sort of talking or more direct and saying about Christian support for Israel, because I think that will be understandable to people rather than Christian Zionism, and maybe sort of reflexive support for Israel or unthinking support for Israel as a way of getting that conversation going, because Christian Zionism can sound like a very technical term.
Yeah, so we really need to start creating a new terminology to talk to different audiences, and yeah, because this fellow is a PhD from Duke, and he is born in Gaza, and every other day talks, want to know if his mother is still alive or not. He is here going to a Baptist church. And so it's amazing. So we need to continue trying to communicate the situation. I agree with you.
Yep. Yep.
I don't like the fact that what I'm proposing is sounding anti-Semitic, but I am really thinking the best way to handle this is to call out the Christians and politicians that say they support Christians and challenge them into saying, are you supporting Christians, but not to the extent you're supporting the Jewish people? You know, are you letting Christians die and allowing them to be pushed out of Israel and Gaza because they're not Jewish? And so is that okay with you? You don't think we should protest the fact that Israeli bombs are killing Christians, that Jewish settlers are killing Christians? Do you favor that? You know, just can you not do something about that? Don't you think?
I think it's. I mean, it is. It's. I think it's usually. I mean, it is. Many people try to trap us into saying, you know, it's Christians or Muslims or Jews or Arabs or Israelis. While we need to come and say, you know, we take it from the perspective. My opinion is from the values. You know, it is. Do you believe that people should be treated less than others? People should, without putting an identity on the people of, you know, the people who are the victims or the victimizers.
Right.
Very clear, you know, there's a very strong, you know, machine that fights anybody who speaks about the violations of human rights done by Israel and Zionism. Not only this, it is many Palestinian civil society international organizations in Palestine who are supposed to be advocating for Palestine or for human rights. They put a lot of pressure on people, like, don't write anything on social media, don't make your position clear, hide. There's so much power that it is being imposed to silence us.
Goodness. Well,
I agree with Omar. I agree with you.
but there's so long to explain.
But I think I'm discovering the best way to communicate sometimes, just to say, you are a minister at a Presbyterian church, and we have a couple that you are counseling. If this woman or this man abusing one another simply because they're Presbyterian, we say, God bless, continue doing it. They will say no. I said it's the same thing. I mean, we just need to discover our humanity. If it's, I think, we need to start focusing on human rights, civil rights, and equal rights. Yeah.
In Middlesbrough, I like this feeling of people thinking they're speaking out of their head. They don't support Palestine. I've had that for years, where I've spoken up for Palestine and I've always been seen as an oddity and a rebel. But now that they've actually seen what's going on, they've asked me to circulate this appeal prayer to them once a week. They want to read it. So all of a sudden, I'm no longer the strange thing that's talking out the top of their head. I'm suddenly the thing that noticed it before they did. So people's eyes are opening. And I was pleased today on Al Jazeera to see they were broadcasting how the Houses of Parliament now under the Labour Party are actually seeing the Palestinian position, and we're talking about withholding armament. I can't even say the word. Withholding weapons from Israel, and there's just been a complete turn. So it uplifted me, but it's been very, very tough, and there are still people around that support Israel. Yeah.
I have a thought about I love Ariel Gold's approach to Judaism and how she says it's against my Jewish values to do this, this, and this. I mean, she always brings up, she holds on to her Judaism, and it's very biblical, very prophetic, she with the prophets of Judaism. And then to listen to Netanyahu's speech talking about Israel as a Jewish state, and to challenge Netanyahu and say, oh my gosh, you're not really a Jew. You don't hold up those Jewish values. How can, maybe we should question your right to be in a Jewish state. I'm just thinking of how to turn it around.
I'm going to email an article to Omar and see if he can email it to you. This fellow by the name of Dan Lieberman, I think, professor somewhere in Chicago somewhere. The issue is he's saying that historically the Jewish people represent themselves as oppressed and continue to do that. And he said, unless they liberate themselves from that, they continue to be the oppressor. I want that article, some of you to read it. And the other fellow that is excellent, the fellow who was in Ben Gurion University, and now he's in England. His Neve
Gordon.
Gordon. I tell you, the conversation between him and Braverman is so powerful that we need to hear it. This group, I think, these things. One in the article, the other one, that encounter, it's incredible.
But my
And they
brother
deal
in
with the
the
same questions.
my brother in the US was sanctioned because of supporting Mark Braverman for what he said
Mm.
in his university in Boston.
The other one, Omar, I'd like for us to have on this group a fellow by the name of Chris Hedges.
Oh, yeah.
And I discovered that he studied theology and then became a journalist. And now he is ordained a Presbyterian minister and goes to teach the Bible every week at prison somewhere in New Jersey or New York. But that fellow on the issue of injustice and what Israel is doing, I tell you, it's so profound and prophetic. We need to hear him.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes.
What's his name again, Fahad?
Chris Hedges.
Hedges, okay.
He was on last night. Yes.
This conversation has been great. Because we have the same actions as last week. We can, participate in that, but I think most, if not all, in this group has done so already. So I would love to also just open a conversation if there's certain actions that are taking place in your cities that you want the group to know about and support. Then yeah, this would be a great time to share this. And we can also put the links in the chat so people have, and I'll copy the actions still from last week just so people can have the links to that again.
I try to focus on making or getting people to be responsible for their actions and staying away from labels. Because anytime you put labels on things, you throw people in groups, and it's really kind of counterproductive to making people responsible for their actions. And that's why with the Liberty, I just try to show what actually happened. And if you can look at what happened and then think it's okay, then I don't know where you are. But anyway, so that's my 2 cents worth.
I just think the world is actually changing now. I think that Israel's become so cruel. I mean, it's so clear, I think, to everyone. I think there are still people who deny it because of their pride, like politicians because of their pride. But in their hearts, they know what's going on is absolutely disgusting. I just think just the very acts of Israel is just changing. The wickedness that's come out of there is dreadful. So, but we hope really that soon the powerful ones with all the ammunition and that actually they do something to stop this disgusting genocide from continuing. I just feel so sorry for the people in Gaza and in the West Bank. Yeah.
I read somewhere like the name Israel comes from, it's a made up name, Isis, Re, Egyptian gods, and El is a generic name for God. Has anybody else heard that?
Oh yeah. Mhm.
I think some people will have thought of it somewhere, but I can't recollect it.
Thank you.
I think we also need to befriend Jewish people and let them know our
Yes.
point of view. Just 2 weeks ago, I met a Jewish guy in the bookstore. He was carrying a book, and I realized maybe he's Jewish, and I started talking to him. And later, he told me he was a Reformed Jew, and he said, God sent you to talk to me, which I thought very interesting. And he invited me to come to the synagogue. I'm thinking about it.
It's not the Jews that are the problem, it's Zionism that's the problem, and the very right-wing Israeli government at the moment. But there's a lot of Jewish people who are actually with the Palestinian people. A lot of the young Jews just, are just so aware of it and they're ashamed of what's going on. So it's not really Jews Jews are very interesting people, and it is this old philosophy about Zionism and the way people have grabbed hold of it and have used it, and they've become so destructive.
Randy,
Unmute. Unmute, Randy.
Randy, I think you're muted.
Sorry, it doesn't say I'm muted. Can you not hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just put something into the chat here if we're looking for actions as well. Some of you may know that I have been following the situation, others have too in this group, for Layan Nasser, the 24-year-old female from Birzeit, who was rearrested in April and given a 4-month sentence of administrative detention. So we don't know what the charges are. We still really don't know what the charges are from her first arrest back in July of 2021, when she was held for several months in an Israeli prison before being released on bail. But she was due to have a hearing on August 7th for her administrative detention. And apparently the prosecutor jumped the gun and asked for an additional 4-month administrative detention, and that was granted by the courts. Right now, the mood in Israel is to hold on to any prisoner that they can and treat them terribly. So Layan Nasser's case has been extended now at this point for another 4 months of imprisonment in an Israeli jail, an Israeli prison. She hasn't been denied any access by her lawyer or by her priest, the Reverend Fadi Diab, who has, I think, spoken to this group before. So I encourage you to keep her in your prayers, but there's also a link. The Episcopal Church this past June actually had a resolution that highlighted her as sort of the face of administrative detention and calling for an end to that. So if you click on that link, you should be able to add your name to a letter to President Biden that our presiding bishop has penned, encouraging her release. The Archbishop of Canterbury also issued a statement earlier today that is available widely on the web. If I get a chance here, I'll try and type in that link for people as well. But you don't have to be an American citizen to link on to that letter from the Episcopal Church and add your name. So, thank you.
Thanks, Randy, for sharing that link.
I went down the town last week where we were standing outside of Barclays Bank. The group that had arranged it were a communist group, but they supported violent resistance. But I mean, I discussed it with them and said I couldn't support violent resistance. So I felt like 99% with them, but there was a part of me that couldn't go along with the entire thing. But just to let you know that it was well received and they're going to be setting up more meetings in Middlesbrough. I just want to now say next week I won't be here because I've got to go for a blood infusion. And on the 13th of August, I have to go in for an operation on cancer of the bowel. So, you know, I'll be in and out, but I'm still 100% with the cause. So I'm not going to be quite as active as I have been. But no doubt I've got a mouth even in hospital. So all the best. I will be, hopefully we'll be in for the prayer meeting, but not next Tuesday. I've got a blood infusion.
Blessings, Dorothy.
Thank you.
Did others read the Gideon Levy article a couple days ago about Hebron? I mean, it's since I lived in Hebron for, I don't know, 14 years or so, I just didn't know it had gotten that bad. And at the same time that all of this is going on, it's not only damaging to what, as far as what's happening right now, it ends up being an erasure of Palestinian culture. I've been talking to the glass artists, you know, the from Hebron, and it's going to die because, you know, they can't get to their factory, they can't do anything, there's no sales, and just hundreds of years this family has been doing glass in Hebron. And I live in Corning, which is the center of glass making. And we have been working to get the Hebron glass artists here. We're doing for several years. And there's a dilemma. If we bring them to Corning, are we helping to close the the hundreds of year history of glass? But if we don't bring them to Corning, then it's going to end anyway because they have no future. And these are glass artists who have a unique way, and they call it Phoenician glass. It's done the way it was done, and nobody else knows the secrets. And Corning is very much interested not just in bringing them here, but in trying to make it so they will be able to go back and continue. So I'm just looking at different ways that we could prevent the erasure of culture. And I'm calling the overall project Unmuting Palestine, just looking for ways, how do we keep on continuing to let the culture that has existed to recognize it, to hear it, and to hear from Palestinians in spite of all the efforts that are made to silence. And I mean, I think, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Diane, did you say Phoenician glass? Phoenicia?
Yes, yes.
Cool.
They and they kind of hold the secret to that. You know, just both the two factories they're cousins to each other. The ones I know are Imad is at the Hebron Glass Factory, and Yakub. Well, it used to be the other side of the bridge between Calhoun and Hebron, but that had to close down because they were building the road there. Israel was building the road, but the Palestinian Authority brought him into the old city. So Yakub is probably not practicing, and he's a master too. The one I've been talking to the most is Imad, mostly because Imad's English is better, you know, but and Imad already has a visa, so he could come. Now we just have to raise money. But the museum is also trying to figure out what if he would be able to work. So we have to work through the process. He probably could sell things, and we could give him a place to work. So, but he knows how to build his own glass firing kilns and everything too. So he could do that.
Good.
If I could just say about, I don't know if you can hear me, I'm in a noisy environment, but just about the art visitor working, just a thought, because we just had a theatre producer came from Bethlehem, and she came around the different theatres in the UK. Some theatres refused to have her because it was related to Palestine, but she did manage to get a tour. But she actually she did talk politically, but it was very much carefully cast as a talk with her about theatre. And she openly, somebody said to her, you're very powerful, why have you not been arrested? And she actually was very honest and said, actually, I'm really scared I am going to be, because 5 of her staff had already been arrested, including the head of the theatre company. So I would really encourage it to not look political, to look like an artist coming to share their way of doing things from the point of view of when they go back, so that it can be kind of just a craft worker demonstrating how they work and things like that. Because I haven't heard back from her yet, but she was due to go back over the weekend. But she was genuinely really scared of going back. So that's just my 2 penny worth, or 2 cents worth.
You know, that what we experienced the last 10 months, it's like normalizing violence and accepting violence and pain and death. And the question that we need to start raising, like Brent Rosen, the rabbi from Chicago, said, the split is going to take place in the American Jewish community. We are for occupation, appetite, and discrimination, or we are for justice and freedom of all people. And I think the church needs to make that decision. Our Jewish brothers and sisters are more bold to say that, but the church, because of our history, is still timid. But I think the church needs to make a stand.
Thank you, Fahad, for that. I think that's a really good point. I know there's some I don't know if Omar is still here actually. But okay. There's some requests in the chat that you at the beginning you had talked about some developments in the West Bank, and maybe we can hear a little bit from you about just like some things that are going on. And maybe this can be a good just ending to our session today, is just hearing from Omar.
Yes. I mean, everyone is following the news, what is happening in Palestine, Israel. But especially, of course, with the catastrophe that continues in Gaza. But there, it is very clear that that it seems that this big problem that we're all in, this nightmare, is not ending soon. There isn't enough political interest to put an end to this nonsense and to these massacres that are taking place. But we are very concerned about what might take place in Lebanon. That is another, development here in Palestine, Israel. Many airlines are canceling airline flights to Tel Aviv. Already there aren't many airlines who are traveling to Tel Aviv, but that is a case. But there are flights that are taking place to Tel Aviv, and they're getting canceled, most of them. So we ask people to hold us in prayers, and especially with the developments of Ben Gvir and his militias, who are becoming every day more powerful, and they feel that they have immunity from the authorities. I think we need to have a special update session on what is happening in the West Bank, especially, and the militias that are roaming the streets and the villages in Palestine. But that's just an update.
Omar, can I ask you? Hezbollah's been accused of killing those children on Saturday. It doesn't seem the kind of thing to me that Hezbollah would do, and they're denying it. And Israel's using it, isn't it, aren't they, in order to cause all this chaos?
I mean, I would not make any comments about who did it or not. We want a third, I mean, first of all, it's regardless of who has done it, it's a catastrophe for the families.
Yes.
So that's one part of it. The other part of it, yes, there should be an independent investigation and hold accountable. I mean, Israel is saying that this could be a missile from from the Iron Dome of Israel, and it fell as it was hitting another rocket that was being fired. I don't know about the details, but it is definitely, this incident is being used as a justification to escalate things already that are already very tense. So, yes, yeah. Honestly,
Thanks, yes. Thank you.
We want to move into the action part. Of course, I mean, we're sorry that the speaker for this week has there was a confusion from her side, and she did not end up coming with us. But thank you, Tan, for taking the leadership and leading us and opening the eyes of many of us to the level of to the challenges that people are facing just for speaking their opinion or standing for, for calling a ceasefire or stop the war, or calling for peace has become a controversial topic. That is an embarrassment to humanity and to the countries and the big companies that operate them. There's always justifications for more violence, there's justifications for war. But I don't think that we would have hit that low as humanity, especially in countries that respect democracy.
Yeah, I should link to the action earlier. It's the same actions as last week, and I know we spent a good amount of time together doing it already. So unless there's last minute conversations, we can end early, but I'll leave a few more minutes in case there's any questions. Next week we'll have someone speaking on Indigenous rights, so we'll have that topic, and then hopefully maybe we can arrange something, a special update session. I think that's a very good idea to have.
Thank you. Just to say, I think it's been very useful to have an open conversation. It doesn't happen very often, and it does feel a little bit more natural than our normal control meeting. So there has been some benefit. So thank you.
I agree, and I think it's we should also encourage people who maybe find it more difficult to speak to share with us, because we'd like to hear everybody who's by everybody who's part of our community.
Yes.
Thank you. And Don Pagler, I got to hear you in Kansas City. Thank you.
What?
I got to hear you when you were in Kansas City. I
Oh,
heard you
really?
I heard you at the restaurant. Tom Clammer brought you in. I couldn't go to the deal at the VFW or wherever it was, or to a mosque. I don't know, it was in Johnson County, because I went to a college reunion. But I really admire you, and I've read up on you. Thank you.
Well, and I have to say to the person who lives in Corning, my stepson used to live in Painted Post, and there is a nice monument in Rochester to the USS Liberty.
Oh my, yeah.
Oh,
It's
I remember, what was his name? Mitch Cady in Rochester always told about the U.S. Liberty. Did you know Mitch Cady?
No, but Ontario Beach State Park, which is in Greece, you know, small town on the north side of Rochester. The VFW there put up a really nice stone about our ship, which says that we're the most decorated ship in the United States Navy, even though very few people have heard of us. So
what is your nephew's name? Who lives in Painted Post? Your nephew who lives in Painted Post.
No. It was my stepson, my wife's
Your
oldest
stepson.
son. Yeah, my wife's oldest son. He was a manager of the craft plant in Campbell at one time, but he's not there anymore. He left New York. Yeah, he quite a while ago. But yeah, so we stayed we were there, and we were in Corning. So
yeah,
well,
this
is our informal talk, huh? I like it.
Yeah,
thank you.
yes.
Yeah, thank you.